All right. Welcome back to Navajo Tea Time, everyone. This time we're doing virtual because none of our schedules met up. And that just happens. So with this topic that we're coming up is the Gathering of Nations.
Yay. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. For those of you who are not familiar with Gatherings of Nations, this is a powwow that happens usually every year. And the 22 event was announced recently. It's going to be happening in Albuquerque, New Mexico, April 28th through the 30th. It's the 39th annual World Celebration. Pretty big deal within the Native community. So many tribes come, they convene in New Mexico for this event. And I'm hearing a lot of people are very excited about it. So this is our topic for today.
Yeah, so I just I notice sometimes like when powwows come up or like things like the Gatherings of Nations, random comments from people, they're like, well, you guys shouldn't be doing powwows or those dances because they're not traditionally Navajo or they're not ceremonial dances. Adrian's pointing out the days. There's 25 days left until the event.
Yeah, for those of you who appreciate a countdown, it's here for you on the website.
So I was just wondering, what are your thoughts about that, Adrian, about like how the Gathering of Nations or like technically powwows aren't traditionally Navajo and just people who partake and participate in those events?
I mean, I don't really have a strong opinion about it. I've never really been a part of the powwow circuit and my family never participated in it either. So it wasn't something that I really attended or practiced. So I do know some families though that do. And what I like, for example, a friend of mine, she has a lot of friends and relations that extend beyond the Navajo Nation. And so her daughter wanted to dance. And so she was taught by them because she wanted to participate in that, in these events. She thought it was really beautiful and it looked really fun. So that's how she was kind of like pulled into that culture. And she knows people like different different drum groups. And she's the kind of person that like drives around with her windows down and like powwow music blaring. You know what I mean? Like she's all about it. But she does say that, there are times when they'll be at a powwow, because they travel all over the United States and they'll be at a powwow and people will, just look at them like, oh, they'll ask them, where are you from? What's your tribe? And they'll tell them. And they'll run into people sometimes that are like, we didn't know Navajos did this, or why are you know what I mean? Like, how did you learn these ways? Or, you know what I mean? It was kind of like this, there was like a lot of judgment. Mm-hmm. Like Navajos take over everything. You know what I mean? Why do they got to be a part of everything? That was the comments. Those are the comments she got and how she was treated. So yeah. What are your thoughts on it?
I don't know, like, I guess it's not traditional or ceremonial, but like, I feel like if people practice traditional ceremonial dances like the way powwows are presented, like having contests and making it really big and public, mm-hmm. then they'd get in trouble or get like negative feedback about that too, because then it'd be like, well, you're monetizing our traditions and our ways and our ceremonial ways, and that's not right either. But mm-hmm. then I feel like some people just enjoy the social aspect of like coming together with other tribes. And I've had some family members who were a part of powwow, and being at the dorm, there were definitely a lot of girls who did powwow dances too. So I don't know, for me, for Navajos, I feel like it doesn't seem so much as like religious, but kind of like how like sports events are, or like rodeo events. It's something you guys do for fun, for recreation, for socializing. Mm-hmm. And I know with my husband's family, his mom's side, they're from the Oklahoma tribes, or some of the tribes that were put in Oklahoma. And so the powwow is a really big part of their community and their society too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really awesome as a recreational activity and like a social gathering. I think it's awesome. The powwows that I have been to have always been super fun. You know what I mean? I like watching the dancers. I like the vibe. I love the drum groups. You know, I have a few drum groups that are my favorite too. So I think it's cool, you know, but I know there are some people that are kind of like, you know, why are Navajos taking part in this? You know what I mean? Especially when we start winning. I notice people get all upset when we start winning and they're just like, come on, really?
Do better.
I know y'all practice harder. God, just
I'm not. You know, if you're complaining that you're not winning, then do better. That's how you win, right?
yeah, it's all based on skill. So
and
yeah.
I always feel like the regalia is so pretty and colorful, and it's nice to look. I would never wear something like that because it's not my style, but you know, it's really pretty to look at and it's nice.
Mm-hmm. I know. I love those dresses. I love watching. I've got mad respect for fancy dancers. You know what I mean? Like you got to have some super strong calves and endurance to do that dance. So yeah, I know how hard it is. I know a few people that actually do fancy dance. And so I hear their stories about it, like their training times and stuff. I think it's beautiful and awesome. So, but yeah, so Gathering of Nations, there's another topic too that I think is kind of a tea topic, and it's like, is Gathering of Nations a cash grab? You know, I remember before the pandemic, there was a big uproar about the people who actually run the powwow and how they're profiting off of basically the culture of all of our tribes. And so, you know, is the event itself a cash grab, and is it truly beneficial to Native tribes? So I think that's kind of a pretty hot tea topic.
For me, I think I first heard about Gathering of Nations from, there was that movie.
Oh, Dreamkeeper.
Yes, Dreamkeeper. Yeah, and it had like all those stories, and they were literally their path was going to Gathering of Nations, and that's when I first heard about it. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. The All Nations, eh?
Yeah, and so like from that aspect of like, you know, people attending and going, it's a nice way to just meet up with everybody and see just how many natives and indigenous people are still around and participating and practicing their culture.
Have you ever gone?
Nope.
Me either.
You know me.
I know.
It's a large event, and just like thinking about it sends me into a panic attack. Like, there's so many people. Where are you gonna park is the first panic attack, and then like just so many people everywhere.
Yeah. I actually want to go this year because I've never been, but I don't think I will. So the one event that I'm always excited about every year is the 49. I mean, there's like Native talent from all over the United States, First Nations, even like down south, they come out and they perform. And I always get super excited about that because, like, for example, I've been wanting to see a tribe called Red for the longest time. And now they're called the Hallucination. But every time they perform, I'm like, man, I want to go. You know what I mean? I want to see all those performers in one space. So that's like the one big event I always get excited about. But for the past few years that I was in Albuquerque during Gathering weekend, I was a part of the Resilience Indigenous Arts Experience, and we would plan it every year during that weekend. And so we would be at the National Hispanic Cultural Center doing our own event, and you know, people who wanted to break from the powwow, they could come out, and we would have our own performers and events too. So it was kind of a great kind of like an opportunistic time to tap into that population of people that aren't normally in the city around, you know, during other times of the year. But that always kind of pulled my attention elsewhere. So yeah, I want to go. I miss seeing people. I like the big crowds. I like the big crowds. I like the music. I like the dancers. And I don't know, like I love seeing people from other tribes too, because living in the Southwest, you know, you're mostly around other Diné, and you're mostly around a lot of Pueblo tribes. And yeah, it's kind of nice to see, like, to actually be around people from other tribal nations because they, you have something in common, but they're also different in a lot of ways too. And yeah, I like it. It's a cool vibe.
Yeah, for sure. I think my high school used to do, or not my high school, but the dorm used to put on their little annual powwow every year. And as seniors, you guys, we had to like run it and do all the logistics for it. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, Diné College does a powwow. That's where I actually heard a lot of the criticism, because they're like, why are they doing it? And I'm just like, why not? Ew, just kidding. Because before COVID, I went to the last powwow, and it was really cool. Maybe I'll post up a picture. I'll send you a picture you can post up. But it was awesome. But yeah, that was actually the first time I heard a lot of criticism about Navajo people participating in powwow. And I was like, dang, okay. I'm just here for my fry bread. Buy some jewelry. Actually, that was the first time I tried a Piccadilly too. It was good.
I feel the diabetes growing in me every time I see a picture of a Piccadilly, and my family's prone to diabetes. So I was
no.
No, thank you. But one other question I had was like, do you feel like Gathering of Nations have kind of lost their original purpose? And I come about this question because when COVID first happened, they had to cancel the event, but they wouldn't refund the money for like the people who bought tickets or the people who bought vending spaces. And like vending spaces, I think, are like hundreds of dollars to vend there. And that money could have gone to like, being able to stay at home and buying food and PPE equipment. So like, I felt like the organization not giving the money back felt like the people in charge of the event were mainly focused on the money that the Gathering of Nations draws in, and not exactly what the people who attend feel like it's for.
Yeah, it was in poor taste. I was upset also when I heard they weren't doing refunds. I'm like, that's messed up, especially during a pandemic when people need that money. Like, I don't think the organizers needed that money so badly. You know what I mean? Not as much as people that, they base their living on the income they bring in from these events, like participating in these events. So I think when it comes to falling away from their mission, honestly, I don't even know what their mission is. I thought it was just to make money and entertain people. So I don't know. I think like if there's anyone out there that knows more about this powwow, they can kind of help us understand, or share information about your experience with the powwow, and how do you think that they've deviated from their original mission? So yeah, put it down.
Or just like, share how, like, has it changed? Obviously it's probably changed in like the type of events that go on and the way it's organized, but like, I guess has the feeling changed if you are a regular attendee? Because I don't know, I hear like, oh, Gathering of Nations this weekend, this is the weekend not to go to Albuquerque. Not because I go to Albuquerque often, but it's just let's not do it that weekend if we're ever gonna go. But like, has the feeling changed over the years, or does it still feel the same to you? And I feel like that's what would matter most, not like what the owners of the so-called event or whatever, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but the people who run the event, obviously they want to make money off of it, but does the feeling still feel the same?
Can I ask you a question, Kelsey?
No.
A question.
Go ahead.
What do you think about those Bilaganas that host their own powwows, and they kind of like dress up in costumey regalia and they dance around and they kind of make up their own songs and stuff?
As someone who doesn't go to powwows or participate in them, and someone who has family who very well pass as white, it would have to be by a person-on-person basis. Like,
Like, what if your
I have
family
an
did
aunt who,
that and they're like, Kelsey, come out to our powwow this weekend?
I mean, how much time do I have to get there? You know me. It's like if you're inviting me to an event, it's how much time do I have to prep? That has nothing to do with like whether I believe in the event or not. Um, but I don't know, like, so I have an aunt. She's half Navajo, half Bilagana, but she has blonde hair, blue eyes, and is very
Mm-hmm.
pale, but she's half, And then there's my
Mm-hmm.
mom who's half, who has the very much complexion of me,
Mm-hmm.
and they're both the same amount of Navajo, but you would
Mm-hmm.
probably pass one and think she was a full white lady, and the other's like, oh, she's probably mixed or probably Navajo.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know unless you're talking to the person and whether or not they grew up in the culture or not. And that it depends on each person. It's a very case by case basis.
But like, these are people that do it just like within their own little, it looks like it appears like it's their own friend group. It's not them participating in a community event with other tribal nations. You know what I mean? So yeah, I kind of think it's gross. I wish they wouldn't do that.
I mean, like, would that
It screams cultural appropriation to me.
but isn't that what Navajos do with the powwow too? Like, they're technically not directly linked
Mm-hmm.
to the powwow culture and tradition, but they take it and use it at Diné College, at the
Mm-hmm.
dormitories. It's
Mm-hmm.
not their tradition, it's not their practice, but they're still profiting off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also cultural appropriation if you want to get down to the fine line.
So I think that's a really great question. And I would love to hear what our community has to say about that, because, I think our job, not our job, but something that we aspire to do here with Navajo Tea Time is to ask some of these questions and, see what that dialogue looks like with other people, beyond just Kelsey and I. Because, I mean, we're not trying to like start any fires or anything, but these are conversations that, sometimes we don't have a chance to have. So.
Yeah, so like you said, like there's these group of passing white people. Like, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what their genealogy is or how they grew up. Maybe they
Mm-hmm.
just grew up with the culture and then they really liked the powwows, but they're not of any tribe to identify, but they still want to enjoy it. And then they make their own, so they're not encroaching on other people's powwows. Who knows what their reasoning are? And I can't speak on them. And like I said, case by case, you have to know the person and know the event and actually experience it to see whether or not it feels ill-intended or not. So like maybe they're not trying to take up other people's spaces, so they made their own space.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I to say what they can do is right or wrong when the Navajos do powwows, but it's not a part of their original culture?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we do that a lot. We're really great at absorbing other cultures and, customizing it to our own needs. And then we get good at it, and then it gets really competitive. And I think that's something about Diné people that I think is a great quality, that, our ability to learn, customize, take ownership of certain things. But like lately, I've been seeing a lot of really negative things about, from other tribes saying like, we don't like that, like you should stick to your own thing. And yeah, but I don't know, as Diné, I think I'm kind of like, I feel a little bit hurt by it.
But like, it's the other culture that we're taking from that's saying they don't like it. So you have to take that into consideration when you're doing something like that.
Yeah, and like I'm thinking of one thing specifically that has nothing to do with powwow too. I'm thinking of this stupid Facebook thread that I saw this past week, that these ladies were really attacking Navajo people, saying that we're stealing ceremonies, we're stealing their spiritual beliefs. And they're like, Navajos don't have any religion. You know what I mean? That's what they were saying. They're just always stealing from us. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? But, I don't know. I was just kind of like, dang, who hurt them? You know what I mean? They're all pissed. But some of my friends were sharing that thread, and I was like, That was
well, with the Navajo culture, from the way I believe, or the way I've seen it, it's like it's closed, so it's not publicized a lot, it's not shared a lot, so the people who do practice and believe it aren't sharing it publicly. And that's the same with Hopi culture. Like they're a very closed society, and they don't share, they don't include outsiders. And some people think, you know, some people may feel hurt and like, but all religion should be for everybody, and they're like, no, this is our religion, this is how we practice it, and it's done a certain way. And sometimes people get hurt by it, and
like by not being included.
Yeah, it's like you're not all inclusive. And it's like, no, we're not. And I know in this day and age, everyone wants everyone to be entirely inclusive of everyone. And sometimes people's belief and culture don't align with that, and they get hurt.
Yeah, I think, and just from what I've seen personally, just like from my own lived experience, I don't see that overlap. You know what I mean? So that's why I was kind of like, I feel like this lady doesn't know exactly what she's talking about, because our cultures seem so different. And
whose are you talking about? Like what culture are you talking about?
They were a Pueblo tribe. So it was these are with Pueblo women that were talking trash about Navajo, which is like, that's cool. We can take it, you know, we're used to that. But when she was like, they don't have any culture, they don't have any religion, I was like, that's not really true. And from what I know about their cultural ways and ours, they're completely different. You know, our ceremonies are very different. And and our language, and even I think the overarching theme though of our connection to a creator, our connection to you know, our connection to like Mother Earth, Father Sky, some of these, you know, overarching themes that exist, you know, all across Native America, you know what I mean? That's something that I think we all share in common, and there's a strong bond there. But I think how we practice and how our ceremonies are carried out, they're unique, just from what I've seen. So, yeah.
Well, from like what I experienced with, like, you know, I think it depends on where you're at in Navajo, because like in Western side, it's really close to the Hopi people. So a lot of our stories and everything are extremely similar. Like, you know, like maybe they've came from a similar thread, or someone shared one story to the other culture and it got mixed in and adopted. And I feel like that's what Navajos do very well, is adopt customs and ways very easily into how we do things. And that's why sometimes Navajo is so regional. It's like, where are you talking about specifically? Because the way different regions do specific things are different.
But like what, you know, like I think ceremonially it's unique, because the purpose of the ceremony is to keep it authentic and true from where it was handed down to how it's even practiced today. So for like all these, you know, some people say hundreds, some people say thousands of years, it's been continuously the same. But when it comes to things like fashion, like different skill sets, like silversmithing, or, you know, recipes for cooking, I think that's what we adopt. Also, how we tend our fields, you know, agriculture, livestock. I think we adopt things like that. But when it comes to ceremony, I think it's completely different.
I can't speak on that. I don't participate in any ceremonies. I just like, I think when people think of like religion or culture, it's like the stories and the myths and the, you know, the things that are more open and people can access. They can be very similar.
Yeah.
Like, because I know we have a Spider Woman, and then Hopi has a Spider Woman, you know, and it's just regional, and whether or not who came first, some people say different things.
I think what it shows is that, you know, she's real, she exists, and many people have had interaction with her. Many people have learned from her. You know what I mean? That's how I view it. But that's just me. I personally believe that all of these stories are not just myths. I believe them as our history. You know what I mean? These are true historical figures that lived, you know, for a time, and we learned from them and we interacted with them one-on-one. So some people call them like a myth. They call it just like, oh, well, this is just a philosophy, or, you know, this is just a this is representative of something else, or they had a great imagination. It's like, no, like, you know, so yeah. But that's my own perspective. You know, I know everyone has their own way of understanding, you know, our stories and our, like Diné Bahanet, you know, our culture, not our culture, our creation story. So yeah. Anyways, I think we're a little off topic from Gathering of Nations.
Well, is it or not? Because, you know, when you start bringing all these tribes and these nations together, things get muddled, lines get blurred, interracial, or I don't know, interracial, but, you know, intercultural marriages and relationships happen. So then things get mixed and muddled, and some people are fine with that. Other people are not. And it's very personal on how someone feels about their culture being shared. And it's hard to say, oh, well, we should all just share this, or like it's okay for everyone, because some people don't feel like it is.
Yeah, I was talking to some academics and they were saying that one of the terms they really despise is pan-Indigenous, you know, pan-Indigenous ways, because they're like, no, every culture is unique. You know, every culture has, or every people have their own land base. They have their own ceremonies and language. And, you know, so it was really, so they were like, when we talk about pan-Indigenous, they were saying that they feel like it's just homogenizing Native and First Nations people. And to them, that's a manipulative tactic, you know, to kind of lump people together. And then, you know, usually it's an instance to minimize the value of those people or the rights of those people, you know. So it's really an interesting perspective that I'm glad we're talking about now, because I think this is the kind of stuff I like to talk about. You know what I mean? Get people thinking about and ask these tough questions, because I mean, it's an emotional topic, you know, because this is our identity. This is who we are as a people. And it's something I think a lot of us struggle with, you know, especially if we're not closely connected or if we're trying to reconnect.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing, like when I watch like a lot of horror movies or like scary shows that talk about like a specific creature or being, and like, oh, this is a Native American thing. I'm like, no, it's a Navajo thing, specifically Navajo. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I think we've mentioned it before, right? You know, like the skinwalkers, you know, that's a specifically Navajo being, creature, monster, whatever, you know, it's specific to a specific tribe. And I feel like when some people or some shows, they try to say, oh, it's a Native American thing, they're not trying to, maybe they're not trying to be pan-Indigenous or whatever, or they don't want to like single out a tribe or don't know that it's a specific tribe. But I feel like if shows and like TV shows or podcasts or anything, like it'd be nice if they identify specific tribes. And
like if I was another tribe, I wouldn't want that on me. You know what I mean? If our people are not known for those evil ways, it's like, no, that's not us. That's them. They're all rowdy.
But then it also adds like context of like, where are they located at? Because like there's that other creature, like the Wendigo. It's very like northeastern states, and that's very specific to their region and their tribes. And
or the chupacabra, you know, all these different beings that are out there to give us nightmares.
Or even Sasquatch. He's linked, or them. They are linked to specific tribes and specific regions. And it'd be nice to know what tribe and region, not just because, oh, I want to know where it is. It's like, it's nice to know about different people's cultural history and monsters. I really like learning about other regions' monsters. And because it adds more to mythology, I feel like, you know, that's why I like to watch horror movies that are very heavily based in mythos and like legends and urban legends, because it's nice to know about those different mythos that pop up.
Yeah, and like the people's relationship to those beings too, because that's unique also. You know, how do they interact with those beings? How do they maintain the boundaries between them and us? Do they know how to communicate with them? Or do they provide offerings, you know, or does that being carry medicine that we can utilize, you know? So I've heard some stories like that, specifically related to Sasquatch and like Bigfoot, And every tribe has a different interaction with that being and a different understanding of it. But the description of this being is pretty much similar all across the board.
So Gathering of Nations, obviously we've talked about some issues or pros and cons of how, connecting all the tribes together happen. Information gets shared, traditions, practices, and everything get shared and mixed and mingled. What are your thoughts about that? And are you going to Gathering of Nations this year? Leave your comments below, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and post a topic you would like us to talk about.
Yes, because we want to get more audience feedback. And so we're creating a space every month to talk about the things that you want to talk about, that you think that we should, bring to this platform. So, let us know what our next topic should be for the month of May.
Yeah, our audience choice topic.
Yay. Okay, bye.
Agona.
Agona. Hagoshi.